Okay, good morning. We are here with John Livengood, professor inside in our master contract claim and delay management in construction works in the unit number 10, introduction to delay analysis, for him to introduce himself.
Very good, thank you. John Livengood. I work with a firm called Ankara out of Washington, D.C. and San Francisco. I'm a senior managing director, a big lofty title, but means basically that I testify on behalf of clients, both contractors and owners, on primarily forensic schedule delay issues. Delay is one of the most common issues that occurs on construction projects and is important. I started out life as an architect and loved practicing architecture, discovered that lawyers make most of the decisions, so I practiced law for a while, went to law school, practiced law. Not nearly as interesting as architecture, no offense against lawyers out there listening, and found a happy medium being a claims consultant and then eventually became a scheduled delay expert. I've written a lot of articles about things related to claims, particularly forensic schedule delay analysis, and have served as president of the Association for the Advancement of Cost Engineering International, AACE, home-based in West Virginia, and it's a worldwide organization and serves people who are involved with project controls, estimating, scheduling, and forensic and claims analysis of all kinds. I'm one of the authors of AAC's recommended practice, 29R-03, which is on how you do forensic schedule delay analysis.
Thank you very much. Would you tell us also a couple of words about the contents of your lessons here in this master?
Very good. I mean, this is an interesting class, is that it's aimed directly at what I'll call claims preparation and avoidance, so that you've got specialists in construction claims that come up. And so I know that they're studying quantum and how you calculate damages, FIDIC, and other sorts of standardized form contracts. As an American, my background, of course, is entirely in the U.S. law, although I've done plenty of work overseas. And I have focused on how you do forensic delay analysis. In certain parts of the world, in the United States, the UK, and certain arbitrations, how you actually perform that analysis is very important and can make a big difference. In other parts of the world, the arbitrators or the decision makers have not been very receptive to the idea that there might be detailed technical ways of performing analysis that frankly yield different results. So in the 10-part series on the forensic delay analysis section, I haven't done all 10 of them, I've done 6 of them, and I guess there are 12 actually, 12-ish. So I've done not 6, I've done 8, or will do 8 units as it turns out. Which includes both an introduction, some of the general principles of forensic schedule delay analysis in terms of wanting to be able to produce a replicatable or duplicatable procedure so that both the finders of fact and the opposing experts have some sense as to how you went about the project, how you went about your analysis, and have some, therefore, reliability or comfort level with your conclusions. There are frankly lots of different methodologies. Some of them are very similar with the same names, but I break them down the same way that AAC's RP 29-R03, which is the recommended practice on forensic schedule delay analysis, breaks them down. And that puts them into 4 separate families of delay methodologies, each of which have variations. One of them is the as-planned, as-built, which is pretty straightforward, sounds just like what it is, where you compare what you plan to do, what you actually did, and you account for the differences by knowing what happened each day or each week along those differences and explaining them. The windows analysis is the second sort of family of them. And it works by comparing one update to the next, all through the entire length of the project. Most major construction projects have monthly schedule updates. By using the Windows analysis, you're using schedules that were used by the contractor in developing them. You're not doing anything hypothetical. You're examining what they said they were going to do in the beginning of the month to what actually happened at the end of the month, and then repeating that process all through your analysis. In either of these two methodologies that we've talked about, they utilize what was actually going on the part of the parties and what they thought was happening. The next two methodologies of these four families is the time impact analysis, and then the last one is collapsed as built. Time impact analysis is probably the most famous of all of the methodologies because its sister methodology is used in almost all construction projects in prospective extensions of time. The contract itself says in order to prove you're entitled to a contract extension, you must develop a small CPM fragment, insert it into the then current CPM schedule, and show the owner that caused the delay. If you can do that, then you're entitled to time and perhaps money, depending on the situation. Forensically, it's a very similar situation, except you're usually talking about a whole series of delays and how you put them together, how you insert them into the schedules, and how you therefore predict what happened on the project is important, and that's one of the topics we teach. The final methodology is the collapsed as built. It's got a great name. Once again, these names are pretty self-explanatory. You take what actually happened on the project, you subtract out the delays from the opposing party, and you'd say, but for those delays being there, I would have finished early or finished earlier. Sounds easy when you say it. The steps along the way are pretty complicated. Building an as-built schedule is complicated enough, but then you have to imply logic to it. How do you recreate a CPM schedule from an as-built schedule? How you subtract the particular activities to collapse it also is complicated. It's a methodology which is extremely attractive, sounds great, hard to implement, and some jurisdictions have frowned on it as being too isolated and academic. So while I talk about some of the basics in the beginning sessions of the class, and I talk about all four of those methodologies, each one with their own session, I also close up with three of the most important elements to be thinking about whenever you do these. One is, how do you choose a methodology? I've just identified four, and there are variations between each one of them. Each methodology has its own pluses and minuses. They're useful for some things and not useful for others. You want to know about that and know when it might be appropriate to use one or the other. I'll give you a clue that the most important issue in all of them is what is the quality of the data that you have. If you've got great quality, you've got a lot of choices. If you have poor quality of data, fewer choices. The other two sort of summary issues that we deal with is what is concurrent delay? Concurrent delay is two delays, one by the owner, one by the contractor, happening at the same time, each of which would have impacted the completion date. It's a very complicated topic, even though I just described it in 5 or 6 seconds. There's a lot of controversy in the courts and among experts as to how you actually perform that. I'll spend a fair amount of time with the students describing that so that they have a clear understanding of how, at least I view concurrent delay, and how courts view concurrent delay and the issues associated with it. The third and final of these sort of summary level topics is I'll talk about why the methodologies come up with different answers, even if you do them all correctly. It seems strange that you could have different methodologies generate different answers, each of those used on exactly the same facts, and each of which is done in the way that they should be done. But the truth of the matter is that each one of the methodologies sees delay hitting the schedule at different times. And because of that, there can be differences in how the actual answers come about. If they, each of the methodologies identifies the delays in a slightly different time period, and it's that result which generates the changes and the differences between the different methodologies. I think I'm having a great deal of fun teaching the class. I hope they come away with something. You know, the vocabulary is so familiar to me that I'm not 100% sure that I always explain something because, you know, I'm familiar with it. And of course, everybody knows what a concurrent delay is. Well, that's not true. I try to correct that.
Okay, very helpful. Thank you very much, John. If I'm right, tomorrow is your last lesson, right?
Right. I give 2 lessons tomorrow. One on the collapsed as built methodology, and the other on those last 3 topics that I just mentioned.
Okay. Thank you
Very
very
good.
much.
Thank
See
you.
tomorrow.
Bye.